Y'all, I'm so sorry. I have a scheduling conflict. I need to go perform an exorcism. Welcome to Just Trust Me, the marketing podcast that calls out the winning and wily ways of today's marketing. I'm your host, Rachel Moore, and this is a special episode of the podcast. No, not because I'm flying solo and you get to hear only my dulcet tones this week, but because today you're getting a download from Meltwater Summit, which was just held this week in New York City, where I was, and which tackles so many great tactics and insights for today's marketers that I have to share them with you. Just a quick note about Meltwater, if you're not familiar, and I work in B2B SaaS. That has been my kind of primary focus for most of my marketing career. But Meltwater is a B2B SaaS tool that does media monitoring. They pretty much allow you to do all the PR, media, social sentiment, social publishing even, but you really do as a brand get to eyeball out there, get a read on the world you're in, and use that to help you strategize and also moderate and mitigate crisis comms and things like that. So if you're a communications professional, you certainly would want to check out Meltwater or probably use it or some version of it. If you're in marketing, still very applicable because they obviously tackle many things that help inform marketing strategy and tactics. It really is all about listening and data and reacting and also being proactive. Also, I will say I give that conference a strong 9 out of 10. This was one of the first conferences in a hot minute where I was able to go and absorb and not like have to run things in the event or work things and I really did give myself the space to attend and absorb what the conference was bringing me rather than doing what we all do. Or like, let me multitask on work and on my laptop while I sit in my seat and Keynotes talking. So, and also if you're out there and you're sending people to conferences, whether virtually or in person, please give them the room to do that. Give them that space. Let them block their calendar. Let them leave work for when they come back to it, because otherwise, what the heck? Why are you investing in them going somewhere like that if you're just going to distract them the entire time? Okay, soapbox done. Today, we're talking about some marketing-y thingies from the Meltwater Summit. First, I want to give you some big takeaways I had from the keynote by Ryan Reynolds. We're also going to talk about marketing to Gen Z. And as a Gen Xer, I found this a very good session. So I'll share some of that. I know many of you listening may not be Gen X. You may be in Gen Z. Maybe you're a millennial. Maybe you're already in Gen Alpha and you're listening to this, which would be really cool. Tell me that you're doing that. We'll talk about some general things about marketing, like production quality of things, using communities for marketing. And then I have a final message to other people who are planning marketing conferences. Okay, but let's get started. So first of all, yes, a big reason I went to this conference was Ryan Reynolds. I also went because I happen to know the person who put this conference on. Her name is Jessica Connolly. She works for Meltwater. I've worked with her in the past. She's an event planner extraordinaire and a good friend of mine, someone who is an awesome travel buddy. She lives local to me, so we get to see each other on occasion. But this was a big get for them, getting Ryan Reynolds. I went into this conference knowing, just based on output, that Ryan Reynolds is a marketing savant. I knew that he was going to have, not just from a star factor, he was going to have a lot to offer as far as, hey, what are some actual things that I can learn from how you, Ryan Reynolds, have done marketing. So some big takeaways for those of you wondering, yes, who you see on Twitter, who you see in movies, who you see in interviews, same person that you see in person on the stage at a conference like this. So that the authenticity was certainly there. One thing that he called out that really stood out to me, and a lot of us may think, well, how do I tap in the vein of the success that he has as a marketer? Especially when most of us are not celebrities, not that star power factor that he has. He said that his agency, Maximum Effort, they make as the North Star for all of their marketing campaigns, joy. They are out to inspire joy, to cause delight, to just make the person on the other side of that marketing message, content, campaign, what have you, feel joy. What a great North Star to have, because if you know that is the thing you're driving for in everything you are writing, you're creating, the channels you're using, how you're targeting your audience, and everything like that. The timing of your campaign, knowing that is the guiding force. How many of us out there can say that we have a singular guiding force like that? Most of us don't. We're just like, well, I know I need to hit this amount of revenue, and these are the kind of customers we hit. Yes, but what are you trying to make them feel? And everyone wants to feel joyful. I mean, who doesn't like to feel delight? That, intake of breath. Anyone who's a Deadpool fan or even a Ryan Reynolds fan or a Marvel fan or whatever, or an X-Men fan, the delight I felt when Hugh Jackman walked behind him on his couch in that spot, and Ryan says, "Hey, you want to play Wolverine again?" Sure. And I just felt immediate joy. Again, that, he's marketing a movie that he's doing. Please take my money. I'm going to go see it at least twice. But that level of joy. So I loved that aspect. It's a great lesson that we all just need that guiding force. Yes, you have all these goals to accomplish with your marketing campaigns. And, not all marketing campaigns are sexy or anything like that. But my goodness, he even made a call out to B2B marketers. I felt so seen. And I wasn't alone. I was sitting amongst a lot of B2B marketers where he's like, a lot of the things they're trying to market aren't sexy, but he's like, you still have to do it. So how does the person you're trying to sell to, how can you make them feel joy? So really great message there. Here's another one. And this ties more into how we work together. And Ryan mentioned that in his 20s, he took a course on conflict resolution, and that has been something he's used for the duration of his career. And he says he uses it in work. He uses it with his family. He uses it with literally any project or person he knows he has to gain time with and, try to convince or influence to help make something happen. What a great message. And really, is that not the crux of, being a human, working in a profession where we are tasked with being human to the humans we're marketing to, and with making a brand seem human? But conflict resolution, and y'all, as someone with an origin story in social media, where it's community management, you are having to contend with unhappiness, with anger, with anxiety. Think about COVID. I mean, it all comes down to, okay, we are in a conflict, small, big, or whatever size it is. How do we get to the other side of it? And it's not about winning. It's not about being right. It's not about proving I'm right, you're wrong. It's not about proving I win, you lose. It is about I want to interact with you tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. And for the days and the months and the years to come, there needs to be a pathway forward. Now, are you always going to be able to achieve that path forward with every single person? No, but make the attempt. And it's just important for all of us to realize too, particularly for many of us working remotely, working with different kinds of teams, knowing you're working with other people that you're trying to get things done. They have their own side to that. They're trying to get things done or feel certain ways and feel successful. So I really love that he called that out. I felt that was just a big one for me, and just a great thing for all of us to remember. And conflict resolution courses are out there. Very good to take. I want to give a quick shout out to my friend, an amazing professional in team building, leadership development, and covering conflict resolution, is Michelle Cummings. So big shout out to her. I brought her name up this week a couple times actually, because she is someone who actually helps teams with this. So if you're like, I don't know how to do conflict resolution, I do need to take some training in it. Her website is personifyleadership.com, I believe. She also has another website, training-wheels.com. But either way, she helps with team building. She helps with leadership development, with workshops, things that you will remember those lessons years into the future. And I took her workshop and I still remember the 2-day workshop, a ton of it. It's like fresh in my brain right now, and the things I learned from it and how I use those lessons today. So there's that. This next one, for those of us who have felt stymied and in an endless circling the drain of, hey, let's create a campaign, let's do a marketing campaign, and let's plan it for 9 to 10 months before it actually hits the ground. Now, sometimes that's necessary. If you're taking a big swing and you're planning ahead and you do need to put that much effort into it. Events, Meltwater Summit, I'm sure was not something that got put together in a week or 2 weeks. That was something they took several months, if not a whole year, to plan. What I'm talking about, what Ryan was talking about, was reading the room, reading the market around you, reading what's happening in social, what's happening in the zeitgeist, and identifying an opportunity for your brand to naturally, feasibly, authentically enter the fray, make a statement, put out a campaign that meets the moment. The moment goes by so quickly. And he said what they always endeavor to do is FASTvertising. He's like, you can't always do it, but when you see that opportunity, having the mobility and the flexibility to move quickly and effectively put a campaign out that does enter that moment, and just, it's almost like entering traffic or, jumping into a river where you immediately are able to get swept away into the current, and you match that speed, you match the tone. And as a result, you get the brand awareness, you get the attention of everyone who's in there talking about that topic or whatever happens to be bubbling up in pop culture at that moment. You become that conversation. So the use case he mentioned was the Peloton situation where, and some of you may not remember this, but Peloton came out with an ad, I believe it was right around during COVID, and it went south because just the way it was portrayed, it had an actress in it, and she's talking about using her Peloton and how she's trying to get more fit and, lose some weight and be committed to her fitness. But she also mentions how her husband is trying to help her keep accountable with this. And the way she said it and the way it came across, the way it was scripted, the way it just was received was that, wait, is your husband making you lose weight? The actress, not her fault, but she was doing her job. But at the end of the ad, it almost looks like she's emotional about how much she's putting into her fitness. And it came across as, are you, blink twice if you need help kind of thing. It didn't go well. It got really reamed across the internet by anyone who saw it, like, okay, Peloton, this seems like you're objectifying this woman, or her husband's objectifying her, and you're making it so a woman can feel like she has to meet a man. It was just all the wrong messages, right? So Ryan put out a campaign featuring the same actress. And I mean, talk about, again, reading the room, seeing an opportunity. Now, I was not aware of this. When I see this from the outside, I assumed he just went and talked to the actress, said, hey, I want to use you. You're in everyone's, frontal lobes right now. I want to use you in our ad. Will you come do this? What we found out from his keynote at Meltwater Summit was that his team collaborated with Peloton. They were more than happy to leave the conversation, to not be at the forefront of that discussion in the zeitgeist, and have the spotlight shift off of that ad and away from it in a positive manner, which he did by featuring that actress. So the actress's name is Monica Ruiz, and Ryan shared that, she went viral in this Peloton ad. It was 2019. He enlisted her to appear in an aviation gin ad really shortly after that. And Ryan shared that they did collaborate with Peloton, but also that Monica, and this is so understandable, y'all, she agreed to do it, but she dropped out 5 different times before they actually shot the commercial and before they actually aired it. You can imagine why. She went viral in all the wrong ways as the star of the actress, the Peloton ad actress. And I'm sure, people refusing to recognize or being ignorant in recognizing that she is an actress. She's paid to do a job, and that's what she did. But she became the center focus of that, and she's like, that is, dude, I just did a job. So knowing that she, Ryan Reynolds, who, if you're in an ad for him, obviously it's going to get seen. She's still going to be in the spotlight. She had some concerns, right? Understandable, but she did it. And the result was Aviation Gin capitalized upon that moment, capitalized upon that discussion, and shifted that focus, made it even everybody, I think I felt joy for her. I'm like, oh my gosh, A, you get to work with Ryan Reynolds. B, you get to be in a successful campaign he's putting on. C, you get to change the narrative as her, as a person, gets to change the narrative of what she's going to be remembered for. He helped all of that get accomplished by reading the room and knowing he could act. And y'all, that was something that he and his team had to move quickly on, or you miss the moment. How many opportunities are we missing because we're over-engineering a campaign, an idea, a concept, because wait, we've got to get 30 different cooks into this kitchen and figure it out. Does legal need to be involved? Absolutely. And they certainly were with that. But again, can you do this quickly? You will miss the opportunity. And we've all missed those opportunities because red tape has kept us from getting all the capital we can out of a marketing campaign that can move quickly. So really great insights into that. And the final thing I want to share about what Ryan mentioned was the power of story. And this was really cool. I have not seen Welcome to Wrexham. I intend to start watching it. I intended that before I even went to the summit. Also, I've been getting a little bit more interested into soccer. I watched Ted Lasso. Yes, I did. But I also recognize, and I've only really kind of realized this over the last several years, is that soccer is probably the most globally followed sport out there. It's certainly more prevalent than American football, which I'm not even into anymore. And, hockey is also a bit more global, I think, too. But you talk about soccer, everybody's in it. And I've really wanted to take more interest into it because I know that so many global communities are really tied to it. It's universal. And I think just the diversity of that fan base, I think it's important to understand like what they see in it and start partaking of it. Plus, who doesn't want to talk about soccer? I was just in New York City and everyone was watching the matches at all the bars. Like I went to watch the Stanley Cup final at a bar and right before it, soccer was on and everybody, I saw so many soccer jerseys. So I know it's for real, especially being in a place like New York where it's such a melting pot of so many different nationalities and people. Anywho, something that Ryan mentioned. So Ryan said him and his partner, Rob McElhenney, I'm probably saying his last name wrong, on purchasing Wrexham FC based in Wales. And they said when they first started looking at that project to make that a Netflix documentary, the people they were working for were like, well, let's make you and Rob the center of the story. And Ryan's standing there and they're with Rob and they're talking about like, well, but it's about this town and it's about this soccer club and the town around it. And there's just so many stories. And the person they're talking to is like, well, we just think you're the big story. There's probably not that many stories around here we can really cover. In that same, right after he says that, Ryan said a person standing next to him was like, hey, great discussion, y'all. I'm so sorry. I have a scheduling conflict. I need to go perform an exorcism. And Ryan, you should see him on stage where he's just like doing the whole like looking at that guy who said there's no stories here and then looking at the guy who's about to go conduct an exorcism is like, I'm sorry, can you say more? What are you doing? And there's no story there? Of course there's a story. And what he gave us, the takeaway from that is like, let's not ever get so myopic that we think there's only one story that will be interesting to our audience. And certainly it must be the celebrity. Certainly it must be the Hollywood factor. Certainly it must be the person who's a household name. We all know facts. That's not the case, and how many times have we seen people share a story or their experience on social media, or it just bubbles up and people start talking about it. Someone brought up Risa Tisa during Meltwater Summit. We've done a dissection of Risa Tisa on this podcast last season. Obviously, nobody would have known her name a year ago, but we now know it because she shared her experience, her story about who the fuck did I marry? And we all know it now. So anybody's story can become important. This is a call out to studios too, but also C-levels and people. You cannot just out of hand decide arbitrarily that a story is not going to be interesting. If you tell it correctly and if you tell it with intent and authenticity and honesty, it can become very important. So I loved that takeaway from Ryan about stories matter. And it doesn't have to be the most popular person's story. So those were some takeaways from Ryan Reynolds. Again, I didn't get to meet him. My friend Jessica did, so I'm very jealous, but he's just seemed like a genuine person, and she attested us to the same. And so just really, I was super thankful and rewarded by him being the keynote for this particular conference. More on that at the end of this discussion. All right, moving on. Another session that I found really helpful was one about marketing to Gen Z. So I'm going to share 3 things that they gave us to think about from there. One, and as a Gen Xer, this was something all these things are things I need to keep in mind. Gen Z is a one-click away generation. They grew up where every answer they needed was one click away. They weren't like me, where we actually had encyclopedias. We had a shelf of books of encyclopedias in our household that I often used to research things for school. Or if I'm like, I don't know about this, whatever. No internet at that time. Gen Z has had internet. They have had mobile devices. They have had the means to enter a search into just about any app and come up with some answers. And as such, they are very used to researching. They take the time to research. They know they can do it quickly. They've grown up as a digital native to that, and they will do research. They put the time in to do it. So keeping that in mind, that they're not a dumb generation. They're not ignorant. They may not be your generation. That doesn't mean they're not smart. That doesn't mean they don't go try to find the answer. They do. And they can find it rapidly, and they will expend energy to go find the answer. So another takeaway from that is that they decide with their dollars and with their brains and with their hearts. They decide based on values, not just value of your product or service. So you may be selling a cosmetic, you may be selling a software, you may be selling a car. They will assess the value of that item to their life, the value of that service to their life, but they're also going to look at values. Does your company lead by example? Does your company invest into community? Does your company care about sustainability, about climate, about equity? Do your leaders tout their belief in humanity, about philanthropy, about nonprofits, about the value of giving back to people and investing in people and being generous? And being kind. So they are, because they can investigate, they are looking deeper into, if you are putting forth your brand authentically, you can be selling a great product or service, but they care about what's behind that curtain. So that was a super great takeaway to have. And I think all brands should be thinking about that. Who are you behind the curtain? And if you're shitty, then this generation, Gen Z, is going to know you're shitty. They're going to find out that you're shitty. And that was the other thing. They will call you out for being shitty. They will put you on blast. They know how to do it effectively, which is, again, why Meltwater comes into play. So people can know, like, ooh, we're getting mentioned by, a TikTok influencer or someone on Instagram or someone in a Reddit community that we fucked up. So maybe don't fuck up. Try your best not to, and try your best to be a good company with good people who are in humanity for the long haul. So there you go. If you care about Gen Z, they're caring about you. So you should do that. You should do it in kind. And then finally, Gen Z does, when that trust is gained, when your value has been proven, they will trust brands more than media and more than government. If a brand has proven they can be trusted, they will trust that brand. I think of Chewy. I know we've all seen, hopefully a lot of people, and if you haven't, go look up just briefly how Chewy treats customers. Tons of things in the zeitgeist where customers have said, hey, I lost my pet. I've had my pet for over 10 years and have lost them, and it's devastating. And Chewy sends them stuff saying, hey, we've helped you feed your pet. Let's help you through this time. How much does that go? Oh my gosh, that goes so far in saying, hey, we're not just here to earn your money. You just lost your pet. You're probably not going to be buying pet food from us for a little bit at least because of that. But what a tragedy, and let's recognize what that pet meant to you. That is a great example of going that extra mile and proving that that brand values the person, values that shopper beyond the money they can make from them. So those were the big takeaways I had or got from Meltwater Summit about marketing to Gen Z. A couple more items during a session about TikTok, and this one stuck out to me too. This kind of correlates back to FASTvertising. The statement was made, and I love this statement: low production quality does not equal low content quality. So particularly for those of us out there who are working in marketing and design, in video production, and anyone who has to approve that content, we can feel like, well, I need to be like, I need to have lens flares. I need to be like J.J. Abrams. I need to be like Steven Spielberg. We need to be creating stuff on that level. Okay, sure. You certainly can. And brands can demonstrate that production quality. But if you're sacrificing that turnaround time, instead of speedily getting something out that does just fine, and sometimes is less produced but feels more real, more authentic. for those, I'm going to talk to C-suite people out there. If you're like, well, I can't just shoot a selfie video of me at an event and y'all just post that as is, you need to go make that look good. Maybe not. I think if you're doing that in real time and it's evident that I just shot this, this hasn't gone through tons of editing and production, go ahead and put it out there. This is for real. There's absolute value to that. And we all have seen reels, Instagram reels and TikTok videos that look like they're not overproduced, but they still have a really high production value of telling a good story. That's where you can focus that attention. Are you guiding your audience along a path of gaining their interest, guiding them on a journey, and giving them a payoff at the end? But you can do that by just shooting a simple selfie video. You can do that. You don't have to go over-engineer it in an editing studio after that. You certainly can, but you don't have to. Another great takeaway that just came from Meltwater Summit was the power of Reddit and using communities in there. And I have seen this play out for my own experience. So Reddit users are, for the most part, anonymous. And the speaker from Reddit mentioned, she goes, you might think that would only lead to a chaotic realm of trolls and abuse and spam. But if you have, and we've seen this happen too, you have a strong subreddit where moderators are present, they have community guidelines and rules, and they have community members who all participate in that community on a daily, if not hourly basis. They are there and they're anonymous, but they are strong. They maintain and cultivate a strong community. And so talking about, they're advising how brands can use Reddit and those kind of communities effectively, but it all boils back down to being an authentic member of that community, that you are not sweeping in, joining a Reddit community and start peppering your own links in there. They will oust you. You will get the boot, and rightly so, because they're like, you are not adding value to our community. This is not your place. We can, as brands, come into communities. We can create our own communities too. But we have to remember, this isn't, I always think back into the days of when salespeople would go door to door and they did develop rapport. Like if you knew who your salesperson was for a certain product, they would come back around every so often and say, hey, I know you. I know your needs. I know your family. I know what your concerns are. I know that, just last year you had a grandkid. I know that coming up this year, you lost your job, and that person has an investment in who you are, and thus they will sell to you with that humanity part always front and center, instead of just like, well, I don't really care to talk about your life. Let me just sell you, I want you to buy this from me. No, that hardly ever works. And it doesn't work that way in communities. So that was a really good note about the power of community, how brands should be using community and not abusing community. So I'm going to wrap my whole download of Meltwater Summit with a missive to other marketing conferences out there. If you happen to be listening and if you happen to help plan or have influence on marketing conferences. Meltwater Summit provided a keynote speaker who gets what the audience does for a living, gets what that audience does as their livelihood, and gets the pitfalls, the pain points, the challenges, and the successes of that audience and what makes their day-to-day. Ryan Reynolds is a celebrity, but he is also a marketing powerhouse. The choice of him as the keynote for an audience that works strictly in communications in the profession of attention getting for the purpose of accomplishing business goals, but also for the purpose of connecting with human beings. He was a great choice. Was he the only choice? No. There are other people out there, but he was the right choice for that conference. So I've worked in events. I've worked in events where a celebrity is acquired to be a keynote, a celebrity who doesn't have really any obvious tie-in to the audience for that event. Don't do that, okay? I worked for a company where we got Mindy Kaling to be our keynote at an event, and still to this day, the audience was event planners and decision makers for events or companies that need to put on events. I don't see the correlation between that and indie-caling. Meltwater Summit was and is a conference designed for communication and marketing professionals. And they got a keynote who is a marketing and communication professional, if not expert, who happens to be a celebrity. It was funny. Someone asked me this at a round table. This was not from the stage. Asked me, did you come to see Ryan Reynolds for eye candy, or did you come to see him for his marketing prowess? I was like, absolutely marketing prowess. That was first in mind for me. Is there a geek factor that I love him and that my laptop is named after one of his characters? Yes. He's fine too. I love my husband though. I feel like I'm turning 50 all this year. Yes, Ryan Reynolds is a beautiful man. Frankly, Hugh Jackman's a little bit more my fave. I'm not going to lie. Sorry, Ryan, if you're listening to this. But I don't think you care though, because you've got Blake. So everybody's happy. And I've got my husband. But it was absolutely the marketing prowess. I've always wanted to be in a room where he speaks about marketing, because he does so many things. I'm just like, I want to be able to exercise and wield that amount of marketing power, even though I'm not a celebrity. How can I do that? And Meltwater did a great job saying, hey, it's possible. Let's put you in front of the person that can help you with that. So marketing conferences, celebrities are great. Can you please make sure that the second I see that person is your keynote, there is an instant, automatic, natural connection that my brain can make to say, oh, I totally get why you have that keynote speaking at this conference to me as an audience member. That's all I'm asking, okay? Just don't make it so you have to have a whole campaign that connects the dots for me. Or that I'd be like, okay, I guess I'll just go because famous person, maybe they'll explain to me at the event why that person ties in it, knows my world. Don't make me do the math. Just put a good equation together. Jeez. Okay. So that was all about Meltwater. Thank you for listening to that. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you didn't. I would love to hear back from you. If you didn't, I do have comments open on the landing page for this. So please let me know. Finally, I'll end with an I so got by some New York gelato, y'all. I was on my way home from day one of Meltwater Summit. It was, summer in New York City, so humid. I was walking, 20 minutes from the venue to my hotel and just jotted across a block, and there was a gelato place right there. And I said, you know what? I'm hot and I'm going to get some gelato. And it was fantastic. It was the right choice for me. I ate a cone of gelato and finished it right as I walked into my hotel, and it helped me sweat less. So that's a win for me. That is all the time we have for today for this very special episode of a Meltwater Summit download by the Just Trust Me marketing podcast. But on my way out, y'all can find and follow me. Rachel Has the Mic anywhere and everywhere. You can follow this podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Just Trust Me Podcast, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts, including on YouTube. If you liked this podcast, subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you really liked it, leave us a review, because that is always good marketing. We'll catch you on the next episode of Just Trust Me.